In the 1930s, hundreds of men were hired to dig the Gauley Bridge Tunnel in West Virginia. They, too, were ignorant of the risks they ran. Desperate for jobs during the Depression, they worked with virtually no protection in a tunnel thick with silica dust. 476 men died here from silicosis.
My name is Walter Kincaid. I worked in the tunnel 4 or 5 weeks. Every day I hear of someone dying with silicosis. I worked until I got sick, and the doctor told me that it was silicosis. And he also told me that anyone that worked as much as 24 hours would not be living 15 years. I think something should be done for our wives and family after we are gone.
Once again, after the deaths, there was a public outcry.
I personally believe that 2,000 men are doomed to die as a result of ruthless destruction of life by American industry.
The next year, 1936, the Walsh-Healy Act was passed. Although it only applied to contractors doing business with federal agencies, it was the first time the government directly imposed health and safety standards.
There's around 5,000 of us that worked around the tunnel. Thankfully, only half of us were selected to actually go inside the tunnel and dig. I was one of the unfortunate ones, I suppose. Hours a day in the tunnel with limited breaks to breathe some fresh air every now and then. Drilling and the explosions are so loud I can hardly hear out of my right ear sometimes, but the real damage is from the dust. The thick, really unbearable dust. People keep saying to spray water on the drills to get rid of some of the dust that lingers around, but it still clings to the air, to my clothes, to my lungs. Around 700 of the workers died. In this instance, people call me the lucky one. I don't see it that way. My day's coming soon.
The industrial tragedy of the Hawk's Nest Tunnel claimed the lives of 700 people due to the exposure of airborne particles from the workplace. Due to the racial inequality at the time, the majority of the workers, approximately 500, were African American. Death was only the most severe result of the disaster, not the singular one. Approximately 1,500 workers experienced the symptoms and the complications associated with silicosis. Too much dust from drilling to make that tunnel. My husband's illness isn't just a sudden thing. These men have been working tirelessly to dig that 3-mile tunnel. Keep going. Pause. Doctors say those men were exposed to too much silica, a mineral of some sort or something like that. I suppose that's why they call the disease silicosis. These workers seemed fine until the Union Carbide suddenly decided to widen the tunnel. They needed to harvest the dangerous mineral to process steel. If only that greedy company knew what the price people had to pay. I recently figured out that Union Carbide knew the dangers of harvesting silica, but it appears their greed took over.
My company helps these men. We hired them post-Great Depression and gave these men hope and food in their mouths. You call that not caring for their well-being? Construction started on March 31st, 1930. The Depression took a great toll on one's manhood. My company gave that back to these men. We essentially saved them from homelessness and starvation.
And I lived in West Virginia our whole lives. Once we heard the tunnel was being constructed through Gauley Mountain, we could barely contain our excitement. Tom had been out of work for so long, we were about to have to sell our house. Gauley Mountain is near Ansted, West Virginia. It borders Hawk's Nest National Park, which led a lot of locals just to call the tunnel Hawk's Nest.
We decided to carve a 3-mile tunnel through the mountain in order to reroute the New River in order to power a recently constructed hydroelectric power plant. We needed that plant in order to provide electricity for the Union Carbide plant we were about to build.
I started coughing and having shortness of breath within a couple of months working in the tunnel. But I was grateful for the job. I could not bring myself to complain and fears of being replaced. My wife and I can barely afford our house, let alone a doctor's visit. I became most frightened when my skin began to pick up a bluish color. But I know I will continue to work.
The company didn't find blasting the drill site with water to prevent just to be efficient. It only slowed down the drilling process.
Tom isn't provided with protective gear at all. No mask, no way of getting fresh air. The only thing the company provides him with is a hard helmet, but that doesn't do much when the air is the problem.
Until 1936 for Congress to investigate the tragedy that occurred at Hawk's Nest. The immediate result was workers filing lawsuits against their employer, Reinhardt and Dennis. These lawsuits made other contractors realize how much of a liability their employees' safety could be, resulting in a great increase in safety precautions at sites across the country.
I no longer work at the tunnel. My body simply just can't take it any longer. I was diagnosed with silicosis about a year ago. Thankfully, I became eligible for workers' compensation. It's not much, but it's better than dying in the tunnel.
The Walsh-Healy Act of 1936 was passed, which made it illegal for companies to work employees under hazardous and unhealthy conditions. The act is still in effect today. The Air Hygiene Foundation was established in 1936, which sets limits on dust from work sites.